All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the MVP Radio Show alongside Brennan Miller and Dan Passante. I'm John Vicari. If you found this on YouTube, thank you, and I'm glad you're here. At Twitter, we are at the MVP Show, so that's where you could get your updates as well, and that's where a link is getting tweeted out. So
I was really happy that
yes.
that at was available. Like,
Yes.
I looked it up and I was like, how is there no one that's at the MVP show? Like,
Yeah. No, I thought that would have been taken too. I was expecting a couple numbers and letters and things along those lines, but
we're clean. We own it now.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. The comment section is open as well for those watching. You could leave a comment and we'll react to it. Unless it's very dumb, then we won't. Yeah. So I'm glad you found us. Episode 2, Episode 1 is logged on our YouTube page if you want to go rewatch it. But this is live and breaking down everything that's happening in sports. And boys, we'll start with the Giants. And it's week 2 in the NFL. They're 0-1, and an opening day loss is pretty like most years. So it's one of the few things that's normal about 2020. The Giants disappointing on a national stage on Monday Night Football, losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it wasn't all a negative performance. I think the defense hung in there longer than they probably should have. And kept the game close. And Daniel Jones looked good for most of it. But like a rookie quarterback, after a 19-play drive that took 9 minutes in the third quarter, he completed it with an interception, and that was a forced throw over Bud Dupree, who was charging at him, and it was a rookie mistake. And there's growing pains, I understand, but as a second-year quarterback, not what you want Daniel Jones to do. And besides that, probably the only thing that was his fault that night. The O-line still stinks. The defensive secondary still doesn't have enough depth. The wide receiver core still not fully healthy. Everyone thought week 1 would be the second time only that Jones would play with Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and Evan Ingram. He's played with all those guys, just not all of them together at once. That's only happened once. And I believe it was versus your Bills, Dan, where they had their full slate of receivers, and still not sure if Golden Tate will play today. Brennan will update us on injury news later in the show. But even so, just not what you want as a New York Giant fan. It was a disappointment, and the O-line needs to be fixed, and there's a lot that I could get angry about and ways the Giants probably could have had different plays to make, it closer. But just like most years, it's just a frustration, and you hope they win today in Chicago, which I think Chicago is a better team, but it's still a great linebacking core, a defensive line, and a good enough secondary where if the Giants don't have full slate of receivers, I don't know how they win this game.
Here's the thing, John.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the Giants are 0-1. They lost a game that they had a chance to win at some point. And honestly, it kind of just feels like everything's right in the world.
I know.
Like, this is what we expect. I don't know what else. Like, I don't feel like anything weird has actually been going on.
Yeah.
I mean, like with the first year of Josh Allen in Buffalo, it was like one of those flow charts, like Josh Allen Bills. Like, did he get better? Yes, happy. No, unhappy. That's all that mattered for me. I didn't expect the Bills to win. If he looked good, if he got better, we move on.
Yeah. And I mean, it was still not a terrible performance, but not a great one, but a whole lot better than the Jets did in week 1, shifting gears to the other New York team. And obviously Dan very happy because the Buffalo Bills took care of business and they made it look like, all right, they only won by 10, but it's 21-0, I believe, at half, or 21-3. I think they got a late field goal, did the Jets, but just an abysmal performance. And I don't think the Jets were predicted to win. And they weren't favorites in Vegas, but I think people were expecting Sam Darnold to take a step forward. They were expecting, because the Jets drafted Mekhi Becton in the first round, the offensive line to be a little better. They were expecting the secondary, who rounds 3 through 7, they took pieces in their secondary and I believe in their linebacking core as well. And not a lot of them touched the field, even though they lacked depth in those positions. And, that's concerning for the Jets. And like all years with them, the injury bug has plagued them. Jamison Crowder is out for week 1 or today versus the 49ers. And not going to hint at where we're going in that game. It's we're all in agreement on something, which we'll get to later in the show. But as much as I'm disappointed in the Giants, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but the Jets, it's hard to look at this season not already being over, as bold as that sounds, in week 2. And it's a sad state of affairs.
We talked about it last week. Like we said that the offense was going to be the point of contention, where they could either improve drastically upon last year and make this team, a contender. The AFC East obviously isn't the strongest division, so maybe second place in the AFC East, or the offense could sputter like they did in week 1, and they could be one of the worst teams in the league. The question I really have is, when do we look at Sam Darnold and stop expecting him to be this quarterback that's going to lead them out of the gutter? Mm-hmm. And Dan, you know this. If you can get a quarterback who can throw the ball and make something happen on offense, regardless of whether or not it's what was originally scripted, being able to move around. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league at creating something out of nothing and moving around in the pocket. If you can get a quarterback that can do that, it drastically improves your offense and lets you score points. We literally saw that in a case-by-case basis last week when Sam Darnold and Josh Allen went head-to-head, and you saw Josh Allen go out and make plays, and Sam Darnold had no opportunity to do that. If your quarterback can go out and make plays, that gives you a exponential chance of being able to win the game. But at what point do we start looking at Sam Darnold and say, maybe this guy isn't the quarterback that's going to lead the Jets out of the gutter?
Yeah, it's true. And I wouldn't even put Josh Allen in the elite category yet, but he's good, he's getting better, and I think that it goes to show that when you have a good quarterback, then things can go really a lot better for you. Buffalo's defense came to play last week. Trey White got his extension, and he played like it, and that was a good sign for the Bills. But as far as Jets goes, I mean, if you consume the MVP show, you will get very accurate Jets coverage every week, I promise you. And we had this down if you saw it last week. We knew the Bills were going to take care of the Jets. We'll get to them a little later, like we said. But, I think this is on par for what we think. I don't think it's crazy to think the season's over in week 2 for them, even though you never know. Yeah. Things can happen, but it doesn't look good.
No, and there's week 1 overreaction always, but I think Brent touched on it. I feel Sam Darnold's still on scholarship with the Jets, where he's still allowed to make rookie mistakes in his 3rd year. And this isn't throwing, I threw shade at Jones. It was only his 13th start, of his career. He still hasn't had a full season, theoretically, even though it's his 2nd season with the Giants. But for Darnold, I don't know when we're supposed to buy into this guy. And I understand they don't have a lot of targets, and the one that they had in Crowder is down. But Adam Gase was brought in for the Jets to be this offensive whisperer, to be this quarterback whisperer, to be the guy that Peyton Manning recommended the Jets take as their head coach. And all he's done, Adam Gase, with the Jets is have an average quarterback like the last couple of head coaches who were defensive specialists. There hasn't been that big of an improvement. And although you don't want to look at history, and I think, quarterbacks develop over time, Gase left Miami with Ryan Tannehill, who looked, bottom 5 quarterback at best and didn't do well. I won't say he's thriving in Tennessee, but with Mike Vrabel, who was a linebacker for most of his career in that offense, he looks a whole lot better. And I understand, they have a better running game, but Tannehill looks like a competent quarterback, and at least more competent than Sam Darnold has looked for the Jets. And an injury we also didn't touch on, Le'Veon Bell is also going to be out. He's on the IR, which is only for 3 weeks. Yes,
starting running back Frank Gore.
It will be Frank Gore, who has a kid who is playing college football. So that just gives you a little inkling of how old Frank Gore is, and I love him. I mean, I'm a Giant fan. I'm hoping Frank Gore runs for 200 yards, and you're just like, oh my goodness. But
has there ever been a father-son duo in the NFL?
I don't think so.
Because I know obviously we've had it in baseball. The Griffeys played and hit back-to-back home runs, but I don't know if we ever had that in the NFL.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, there's obviously like coaching trees where, I believe,
right,
because of Hard Knocks, Rex Ryan's son is now with the Rams, and there's stuff along those lines. But I don't think a coaching tandem like that, where they were, off at OC and HC were related. Maybe I'm wrong, and definitely I don't think 2 players who played together. But
I look up NFL father-son duos, yes, and it gives me Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. and Gordie Howe and Mark and Marty Howe.
There you go. Yeah,
doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing you had were the Manning brothers in the NFL at the same time, but obviously, quarterbacking two different teams.
That'd be wild. That'd be so much fun.
Yes, we
Both Gores were.
Yeah, no, what was that, Brent? Both Gores?
I said if both Gores were in the league, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, maybe
Gore
the Packers will take that.
At 40 years old.
Yeah, no, good old Frank Gore. Yes, slated to start for the Jets against the 49ers. And again, the Jets and the Giants both in the 1 o'clock slot. And for the local people, the Giants are on CBS, the Jets are on Fox. It's a side note. I never understand it. The Giants are supposed to always be on Fox. The Jets are supposed to be on CBS. It's the AFC, NFC packages. Don't understand why Giants Bears is on CBS. And one of the only NFC versus NFC games that CBS has. The majority of their slate today's AFC matchups. But, I don't know. That's the NFL scheduling for you. So both on the 1 o'clock slot and not on the channels you probably think they are on. All right, we touched on the top how 2020 for you guys insisted the Giants losing and it's back to normal like other years. Well, Yankees Red Sox for me the last 2 days really brought back a old, it was fall, it was cold outside, wearing sweatpants. I just felt it's not postseason baseball yet, but it made me feel really, really good. And the Yankees are on a 10-game winning streak. Have taken the first 2 games in the series against the Boston Red Sox. Will conclude today. And Brennan, we weren't hitting the panic button last week when they were 1 game below 500.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, you were. Okay, never mind. But
yeah, I was absolutely smashing the panic button. I'm a big overreaction.
Yes.
A big overreaction guy. That's what week 1 in the NFL is for overreactions. Like we just talked about how the Jets season is over.
Yeah.
Big MLB overreaction guy too, and the Yankees went on that losing streak, and I was like, we're not going to make the playoffs.
Yes.
But no, we're good. We're good.
No, and at that time,
Yankees we've ever seen. So another overreaction on the other side. It's just a pendulum. It goes back and forth.
Yeah, think about it. They were 21-20 at a point, the Yankees, in the first 41 games. Now 31-21 on the season, 4th in the American League, 2nd in the AL East behind the first place Tampa Bay Rays. But they were 7th last time we talked, looking up at the Twins, looking up at the Astros. And now they rally off 10 wins in a row. The starting pitching has looked tremendous. The bullpen's doing what it has to do, and everyone's hitting. The injuries have subsided. I believe there's not one Yankee right now on the 10-day IL. You still have Paxton and Canely and Severino, of course, still on the 45-day one. But there's no one that the Yankees are looking to get back in the next couple days. Everyone's back. LeMahieu's maybe the best hitter in baseball. Him and Tim Anderson vying for the AL batting title. Luke Voigt's hitting the tail off the ball. And they just look good. And it really, I think, Dan might not like this, but it's just a testament of, in my opinion, how just good the Yankees organization is. I think most teams with these expectations that they saw in the preseason maybe would have buckled under the pressure. Maybe, would have left to a change, whether in coaching or someone getting more playing time. But the Yankees rode out, which were difficult bumps with injuries and in the losing streak, and never lost faith, and now are 31-21. And realistically, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Tampa will win the AL East just based on the matchups going down the final couple games here. But Yankees could still, mathematically win the American League East, and their magic number is 1. So if they win today, they will guarantee themselves a playoff spot. And if they're in the top 4, I think, Brennan, that matches expectations.
I don't know about expectations, just because, the Yankees were supposed to be, I think, tied for the best odds to win the World Series going into the year. And I think people kind of expected them to be this powerhouse team that, with a losing streak in a 60-game season like they had, I don't think you can really live up to that at all. I would love to see them push for that AL East number 1. It's going to be tough just because the Rays don't have the most difficult schedule going to the end of the year. But yeah, you talked about how the Yankees have just kind of turned things on. LeMahieu, obviously, up there with Tim Anderson for the batting title. Luke Voigt is absolutely just hitting the cover off the ball, leading the majors in home runs by 2. And when he steps up, this is what the marker for me. When these guys step up to the plate and you say to yourself, there's a chance that this ball is going to go out every time that they step up. That's when I think things are going really, really well. And for a lot of the Yankees, it's been that way. Luke Voigt, obviously, you expect him to hit the ball really well. LeMahieu, you expect him to hit the ball really well. He's up 340 something in his batting average. You have Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, who are two guys who just mash the ball, regardless of how healthy they are. They just come up and hit the ball 115 miles per hour. And then you guys got guys like Clint Frazier, who up until halfway through this year was not a starter on this Yankees roster. He was a guy who you throw him out there and trade bait because you don't really see him fitting into a spot in that Yankees outfield. But now he's a guy who, even when Judge came back, he became their starting left fielder and kind of pushed Gardner out of the starting lineup, which I don't know if you saw the story yesterday, but I thought it was hilarious that Gardner took Frazier's fake turtleneck as like a show of dominance.
Yes.
He's like, Frazier tweeted that Gardner stole it from him and was going to wear it for the game, and he did. So I love that there's they're having fun in the locker room now. But yeah, the Yankees are just turning on, and I love it. And I think that while Voit and LeMahieu should get MVP votes, I think the fact that both of them are doing very well is going to take away. Voters aren't going to want to vote for two Yankees as AL MVP, but at the same time, I think that they both deserve to be in that conversation.
No, yeah, and LeMahieu, I think the number 368 average-wise, him and Tim Anderson are neck and neck, and he's, I think, as many hits as games played this season for him, and every game, it feels like a hit for him. And you touched on Brett Gardner. People know me, Gardner's my guy. He's the longest-tenured New York athlete, and it's good because I think for him this is definitely a blow that he's not a top 9 guy, and that Clint has, I think, surpassed him in terms of what the Yankees are going to go with. I think what we saw Friday night, Brennan, at Fenway, is their postseason lineup. If, things go according to plan, and that will obviously not be Gardner, but, not taking it too much to heart with Clint and doing the turtleneck there. And that's, you want to stay, the thing is, you got to stay loose over a 162 game season, especially maybe now in a 60 game where the pressure's on every single game, where there really isn't a game you could just throw away. It's good that they're loose, and it's easy to pull pranks like that when you're winners of 10 straight. But the Yankees definitely doing well. The Mets, on the other hand, I think not living up to expectations. They had the story this week was that the fact that they have a new owner in Steve Cohen, even though it should have happened in the summer, and I wanted A-Rod and J-Lo to buy the Mets, but it is Steve Cohen. He will be the richest owner in Major League Baseball once, everything is finalized surrounding that deal. But the Mets right now, 24-28, the third team out, looking up at the Reds, who are the final wild card spot, and the Brewers and Giants, a record of 24-28, not living up to expectations. I think, Brendan and Dan, that that the Mets were a playoff team. I'm not saying that they should be stride and stride with the Yankees, but I thought they were good enough to make the playoffs. Doesn't look like the case. Still not mathematically out, but going to have to, pretty much win out down the stretch here if they want a playoff spot. But the future, I think, looks bright with Steve Cohen. I think he's not going to be afraid to spend on players. Maybe he'll extend Cespedes for 6 years. Who knows, yeah, right? So I think that's a positive for the Mets, but I don't know about you guys. I view this season as a disappointment. Brendan, you may think different.
Well, I think I have a question. If he extends Cespedes for 6 years, does he give his horse 4?
No, well, he gives the boar 4.
Oh, the boar.
The
right.
boar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
just wanted to be sure.
Oh, okay.
I think my favorite part of this purchase has been the fact that now, since the Mets have a new owner, they're going to sign Mike Trout.
Oh, jeez.
Fernando Tatis Jr. Well, it's Mookie at the end of his contract. Just all of these. I think they're going to sign everybody because they have the money now. So they're going to be the best team in the majors by far. Who cares about a luxury tax?
Facts.
I saw a article on ESPN yesterday that was Cohen's first move as owner should be to steal Cashman from the Yankees.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the headline. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I think I said it earlier, it's overreactions.
Yeah.
These big things happen, and people are saying that, the Mets are going to be the best team in the league for years to come because they have the most money. We've seen that that's not always how it works. Like Moneyball, the A's, like teams do this all the time where they go out and find these guys for cheap and go out and win. Like, I don't know. I get it. I get that you're looking at this and saying we're going to be able to buy the best players. But at the same time, it's not always how it works. You have to have good management. You have to have good guys in the clubhouse, guys that work together really well. And I just don't think the Mets are an organization that understands that. It's not all about the money. Like you look at the Yankees and their big brother in New York. And you see them have success because they go out. And in the past, they've gone out and bought all these big players. But that's not the whole reason. You can't point at one thing and say that's the reason we win. There's a lot of different things that go into it.
I was just about to get to that. Like if we look at the NBA, why are the Knicks bad? That's a really long answer, but like part of it is James Dolan. Like a big part of it is the ownership. Now that the Mets have new ownership, maybe they can go in a new direction, but it's a lot more than having a new owner. That's so true, And just because I have to bring up the Bills every time I talk.
Sure.
When now that they have a new owner, they're getting better. We'll see. We will see. But I do agree that it seems like these past few years we're always saying the Mets will be better, one of the best teams next year.
Yeah.
Next year's yet to get here for New York. I mean, I still think it can happen, but a lot needs to happen. They're definitely not having the season the Yankees are having. And after this week, like you said, 10 games now. All right. I didn't know the Yankees won 10 games in a row, but I knew they were doing good because every week my grandma calls me and she's a Yankees fan. When they're doing bad, Sanchez has got to go. I can't believe he put this guy in. It's complaining. She's angry. This week she called, didn't talk about the Yankees. Wow. So I thought to myself, they must have been better this week because I didn't hear it this week. So then I had to look it up, and I saw they won these games. And I thought that makes sense because we didn't, have to yell this week about Gary Sanchez. But we'll see how it goes from now. But you have to think that after 1 week, the Yankees have put themselves in a much better position. They really have.
Yeah, I think Dan doesn't like Yankees Twitter for Dan Brennan is just his grandma. Like he's getting the same thing. He doesn't have to download the app. He's just getting all the reactions from everywhere just in one phone call, which is hilarious. But yeah,
I mean, you say that, and I'm like, yeah, I've read those takes on Twitter for the last week and a half about how Kyle Higashioka is the next coming Jesus.
Yes. Oh yes. No, but no, I definitely think Cohen's definitely a positive for the Mets. But Brendan, you touched on it. You can't in this modern day age. You can't just buy world championships. If that were the case, it would have been Dodgers, Red Sox every year, and the Dodgers still haven't had one since what was it, 83 or 84 when they won, but or 88, excuse me, Kirk Gibson. But so there's definitely it's a management thing, and they have to put the owner who now has the money has to spend it right, but has to spend it on the right general manager, which I don't think will be Brody Van Wagenen, and the right people in place. But definitely, I think puts the stigma of the Mets. They're still going to be little brother in town. There's no changing that until, unless a decade of championships. But the fact that they have an owner who's willing to play ball puts them higher than the Jets, the Nets, and the Islanders in terms of just being up there with the top dogs in New York. And, I think a positive that the Mets are going to take, or Mets fans are going to take from this season.
The Mets might be big brother if they move to Manhattan and 25 Yankees World Series get voided, but we've seen that the MLB doesn't void World Series even if people cheat. So,
wow, you're going in today.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Brendan's going in today. I'm liking these takes. Very fiery. I don't see any comments, but I think they're gonna come. I really do.
I just gotta get Gavin on here to talk crap to.
Yes, you do. All right, now shifting to the National Basketball Association, both in their conference finals, and there is a team that Dan's favorite team is still in. The Boston Celtics are in the Eastern Conference Final. They're down 2-1 to the Miami Heat. And in the West, the Lakers are up 1-0 on the Nuggets, who have been really the surprise and the main story of this 2020 NBA playoff. Dan, the first question I posed to you, we got to talk Celtics. I think you, as a Celtics fan, just knowing you're very controlled. I don't think you're overreacting too much, and I don't think for you there were expectations of an NBA championship. But being this close, do you think they have what it takes to win the NBA Bubble 2020 championship?
Well, they had to win last night, and they did. And I think they really have to win again, because if they don't, they're going to be down 3-1. And unless Boston's going to trade for Jamal Murray, that's going to be very difficult to come back from. The Heat have been so good this playoffs. Pat Riley deserves all the credit in the world for putting this team together. Just everyone has been playing great. Bam Adebayo's unguardable. I mean, Jimmy Butler, all the deflections on defense, and just how aggressive he is offensively. It's been really difficult for the Celtics to contain that team that's really well coached, by the way. Boston has really had a hard time containing Miami. And now you see that they're down 2-1. The series isn't over yet. Absolutely not. But they really have to win this next one. And I mentioned in the West with the Nuggets and the Lakers, the question is, can the Nuggets come back? Right now they're down 1-0 to LeBron, which for them 1-0 is like, that's not even cause for concern. They were down 3-1 twice, and they came back from both of those. So that series is not over either, but I think that many people expect the Lakers to handle the Nuggets, but they expected the Clippers to handle the Nuggets too. I really cannot sit here and give you a definitive answer on who's going to win that series, but tonight is game 2. That will say a lot whether the Nuggets are able to bounce back or not, and especially now that Kawhi Leonard's out of the picture. I think that many people expect LA to be in the final, the Lakers, that is, to be in the finals and to win it. Going to take on the Heat or the Celtics. I thought Boston could win it all. If it gets to be honest with you, my biggest fear was playing the Heat because I knew how good they were. Not the Bucks. I knew Boston could beat the Bucks. But I think they can. I don't know if they will, though. If Miami wins this next game, they're probably going to go to the finals and play LeBron. But we'll see. For the first time in my NBA fandom, I don't actually know, which is so much fun. For years, it was just like the Warriors. But now, who knows? It is really entertaining. And tonight, we'll say a lot about the West. And the next game 4 on Wednesday, we'll say a lot about the East.
Yeah, I think you hit every nail on the head there, Dan, in terms of the fact that, hey, it's an interesting NBA playoff because you're seeing unexpected performances. I think a lot of people didn't know the name Jamal Murray. Maybe knew of Donovan Mitchell, but didn't know exactly how great he was. And they've had great playoff performances. And even Jimmy Butler, for the Heat. I didn't think Miami was good enough to make the Eastern Conference Finals. And I thought they were first round and out to the Pacers, and the fact that they're here and now 2 games away just shows maybe Jimmy Butler, is a number 1 option for them. And I think the main thing, which sort of, goes against the NBA's philosophy and mindset where they really push the star player and individualism, but it's the best teams in a team sport like this. The Nuggets are, why they got by the Clippers. They had the better chemistry. They played better as a unit. It wasn't relying on Kawhi and playoff P and Paul George there. They were the best units. And, I think it's good. And you touched on it too. It's not the same, even though it might. I think the NBA is a league that doesn't need parity. Like they're fine with Warriors versus LeBron for, a decade. It's nice to see, what we have in this Final Four. And it's been a very interesting NBA playoff. Now shifting from one bubble to the other, same segue I used last week. I think it's the only segue you can go.
Every week notice. Every single week.
Yeah, it's too clean. But the NHL is in their Stanley Cup final. Game 1 was last night on NBC. Stars are up 1-0 on the Tampa Bay Lightning. This past week, the New York Islanders' great run ended to the Lightning, who were a better team, but they did take them 6 games. Testament to the New York Islanders organization and Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz, but the Lightning just too much skill and too much depth on all their lines. But they're down 1-0 to the Dallas Stars. And for me, Brendan, this is a surprise. Dallas's goalie, Antoine Khudobin, 35 saves last night, but a guy who's been a journeyman throughout his career and just a hot goaltender at the right time. Dallas was outshot last night by 16 shots, but Khudobin just kept responding. It was a 4-1 victory for the Dallas Stars. I think you'd agree with me, Brendan, where the Lightning are still the favorites in the series. I would still pick them even though they're down 1-0. But the Dallas Stars, definitely a surprise thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned it. I did not have the Stars really competing in this, to be honest. I didn't really have them in the Western Conference at all. Like, I thought it was going to be Golden Knights for sure coming out of the West. maybe Vancouver if they could have gotten past the Golden Knights. But I mean, to see them go out and win game one and in really kind of a dominant fashion too, was very, very surprising, especially because I think the Lightning overall just have a lot more talent. I mentioned it last week. I'll say it again. We saw them last year be one of the most successful teams in the history of the NHL and then go out and lose in the first round of the playoffs. And this is kind of like a revenge tour. You know, you love a good revenge tour where guys come out and say, we're not going to lose this time. This is our year. And a lot of the times it works. So to see them go out and lose game one was a little bit of a surprise. But at the same time, I think with the amount of talent that they have, it's constant through all sports. You're going to look at a team that has a lot more talent and say they're the favorite, and it's going to take them being bad and the other team being very good for an upset to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Tampa Bay just, and on paper and throughout this playoffs, it wasn't last season where they were the President's Trophy winners and bowed out to Columbus and didn't gel. This team, it's their year. And I think game one, just was a bump on the road. And I would still, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I'd still take Tampa in 5. Even after last night, they're gonna have to figure out Hadobin. But I mean, yeah,
gentleman's sweep, yeah,
yeah. I think they just have too much talent. I think a gentleman's sweep is coming. Just to give everyone the lay of the land with the Stanley Cup schedule, because NHL hasn't been doing a great job of that. Game 2 is on Monday, NBCSN. Game 3, Wednesday, NBCSN, which it's a side note for me, and maybe I shouldn't care. The championship should not be on the second channel. The NBA Finals, every 7 games will be on ABC, not, ABC for Game 1 and then ESPN 2 for Games 2 and 3. No, they're not doing that. That's ridiculous. So whichever, TV rights deal the NHL has next, got to be on the main channel for every single game. But yeah, Game 2 Monday, Game 3 Wednesday. Friday will be Game 4, and then they go back-to-back Friday and Saturday. So Game 4 Friday, Game 5 Saturday, and without the travel with the bubble, they could pull that off and won't have to go against Sunday Night Football or the debate that is on the 29th. Game 6 is the 28th, and Game 7, and of course 5, 6, 7 if necessary, but Game 7 is on the 30th. All those games starting at 8 p.m. I feel like I'm a promotional guy for hockey, but I sort of have to be because, I don't think many people are knowing, there's exciting stuff going on NBCSN, which, Dan, if you can name what channel NBCSN is on, you have Spectrum, right? Yeah, I'll give you like $5.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's what I thought. This is, exactly.
In 80s somewhere.
I'm sure. 60s. Yeah. No,
As a casual hockey fan, I will admit, if I knew the games were on NBC, I would watch. I don't know where they are, just to prove your point. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
I started watching the game yesterday exclusively because it was on immediately after the U.S. Open.
Oh.
And I had golf on.
Segue. That's why Brennan is just, that's what we're going to talk about next. The U.S. Open. That's just Brennan being a professional.
God, I'm so good.
It's unbelievable. It's just radio talent right there. It's Zoom talent. That's what Brennan Miller is. But yes, Brennan, U.S. Open. My one takeaway is Tiger didn't make the cut, so it doesn't matter anymore. But tell me why this matters and why you're having fun watching golf on a Saturday.
So the reason that this has been, and I like that you use the word fun, because the two guys that are on top of the leaderboard right now are two of the most unconventional golfers that are on the tour. So Matt Wolff and Bryson DeChambeau. Matt Wolff is 21 years old, so he's a year older than us, and he's out there up by 2 strokes in the U.S. Open Championship. He does this because he has the most unconventional swing. The dude bombs the ball, absolutely hits missiles, and he has the weirdest swing you've ever seen. Golf people hate it because it's not, golf is, we saw it at Happy Gilmore, where golf is this very, buttoned up. You got to do everything correctly. There's rules to the game. And he just goes out and doesn't swing like a normal person, goes out, bombs the ball, and then is able to clean up his mistakes once he hits it 400 yards. And the guy in second place does the same exact thing, which is the opposite of what people thought was going to happen at this U.S. Open. Bryson DeChambeau came back. We talked about it before the show. This guy hit the ball, year average 280, 300 yards off his drive, and then was pretty consistent hitting the ball to the green. But he came back after the first pandemic break and had gained like 100 pounds and was just hitting the ball 400 yards And he said that he did it by drinking, I think, 7 protein shakes a day. I said it before we started. Can you imagine if an athlete, any other sport, came back from a break that was really only like 3 months long, had gained 100 pounds, and was performing 20 times better than he was prior to the break? You'd be going, steroids. This guy's cheating. He's doing something. But no, golfers are just like, no, he just hits the ball farther now. Like, no biggie. But that's why it's been so much fun to watch, because these guys just hit the ball 400 yards into the rough, which the rough is deeper than it has ever been at this golf course. It's literally in the first cut of rough is 4 inches, and then the second cut is 6 inches. So you would like hide a soda can in it, and you'd never be able to see the ball. And these guys are just hitting it as far as possible, and then being like, well, now it's in the rough, but it's 20 yards from the green, so makes it easy. But that's why it's been so much fun to watch, because these guys are just tearing up the golf world and being like, nah, we don't need your rules. It's fine.
Yeah, whether the golf world's ready to embrace it or not, Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka, who I don't know if he's in the hunt this U.S. Open, but definitely a bad boy. And I'll tell you, we were just talking about hockey and promoting that. If golf gets a modern day, Happy Gilmore, which I think the movie is that good where you could reference a 1997 movie in 2020, but people will watch. I'd watch golf if there was, a guy like that. And, I'm not, the biggest golf guy, but following the DeChambeau stuff, I followed it because, that's
It's
not
hilarious.
conventional.
It's hilarious. The dude just comes back absolutely jacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. But like you go back and you say a 1997 movie, like it's been 23 years, and golf is still thinking we have to keep things all buttoned up and we have to keep things professional and like, dude, you saw a movie in 1997 about how fun your sport can be if you let people go out and hit the ball 800 yards, but it goes straight to the right. Like, that's what's fun about the sport. Let people do it.
Yeah.
You saw it 23 years ago.
So as a casual golf fan, I have 2 questions. 1, where is Tiger, and does anyone care?
Yes.
And 2, how do you say the guy in third's name? Louis Oosthuizen?
Yeah, he's South African. Oosthuizen. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. He's not going to win.
Wow.
And Tiger did make the cut 2 days ago. He the Tiger's issue is that he's not hitting the ball as far anymore. So wasn't able to keep up with those big bombers up top. And once he got to +7, I think, missed the cut. So he did not play yesterday, and he will not play today.
But you said it's fun to watch. So, like, Tiger's gone and no one cares, right? Is everyone like, oh, there's no Tiger? Or is everyone just having fun with these new guys?
So coming into it, people were expecting the winning score to be around like +6 or +7 because the course is very, very difficult. But right now, Wolf is -5 and DeChambeau is -3. So these guys are just playing so much further above everyone's expectations that it's kind of blowing people out of the water. No one's really expecting it. So I think that's kind of where that's coming from. And right now, they're in the final pairing. So it's Wolf and DeChambeau in the final pairing. DeChambeau is 27 and Wolf is 21. This is the youngest final pairing in the history of golf. Combined age, 48 years old. You've got guys playing on the tour who have 17 years left playing on the PGA Tour at that age of 48. Like, these two guys combined are going to be very good for a very long time. And I think that's very much an exciting fact for a lot of people watching golf to look at.
Yep, and the course is the Winged Foot in Mamaroneck, New York. And if this was a conventional year and people could go very close to where I am, about a 30-minute ride. I'll say upstate Reading because it's up for me, but of course you wouldn't consider it upstate. It's still downstate, but yes. And Gilmore, by the way, I checked 1996. I said 97. That was my mistake. But I think I put it in 97 because just a great movie year. You know, Titanic, Saving Private Ryan, Happy Gilmore, just 3 great movies. Right, probably the Oscar nominations too. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So that was my bad, but still, 1 year off, pretty darn good. I'm good at guessing movie years, but yes, golf definitely exciting, and the U.S. Open on NBC today. All right, Brendan, do you have any updates concerning anyone NFL-wise? I haven't got notifications. If I'm looking away from the monitor, it's checking on stuff in terms of NFL news. I still haven't gotten any notification regarding Golden Tate of the New York Giants. Have you gotten anything worth note right now?
No, right now, so things we knew, Michael Thomas out this week, Kenny Galladay out this week, A.J. Brown out this week. As far as who's going to play, Cortland Sutton is active for the Denver Broncos. Expect him to have a little bit of a role, along with a few other receivers. Devontae Parker for the Dolphins is active, and KJ Hamler should be making his career premiere for the Broncos as well. And a piece of that offense that is really fast. When he gets the ball in his hands, can be a big threat at the wide receiver position. Two more actives. Brandon Ayuk for, I believe, the 49ers is active, and Michael Pittman active as well. But I don't think any updates as far as since we have started the show. Obviously, we know that Kittle is out for the 49ers. That's a big blow to a lot of fantasy teams, including one of mine. Now I have Noah Fant starting at tight end, so that's fun. I think it's actually against you, John.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so Kittle is out, and then a few defensive injuries as well. Can't find him. I'll look for him right now.
Yeah, no, all good. And a couple of notes on that. Cortland Sutton making his debut. I think the Broncos definitely needed him, and I think that was in that game against the Titans that was very close on Monday Night Football, and was the story that was Steve Gostkowski for the Titans just not knowing how to kick a field goal if he's not in Foxborough for some reason. The Broncos do play the Steelers today. I think Cortland Sutton adds to their offense, and there's someone here who did pick the Broncos as an upset. We'll get to that later, but I think Cortland Sutton added to that offense is a very underrated move that I think we have to look at. So do you have defensive notes, Bren?
I said I would look. I didn't look. Awesome. So that's a straight lie on my part.
We can just keep talking about Cortland Sutton because I had him on my fantasy team, and I was going to play him, and I ended up not doing it. My team didn't win anyway. Sure. I was really upset about that, but I'm hopefully he'll play a role. So I'm hoping anyway.
Side note, just for the viewing audience, we are all in a fantasy league together, and Dan did the bold thing. It should have been predicted by all of us. I don't know why I would think otherwise, but Dan did auto draft his team, and he had the number one pick.
Yeah.
So he let the computer do the drafting for him, just like that Corona commercial that airs during the NFL with Tony Romo and that guy. He auto drafted. He was chilling. He was just chilling.
I am, and I'm in a league with a bunch of sports media majors. For me, who's not paying a lot of attention, I'm gonna let the people who get paid to pick pick my team. And so far, I love that. But we'll see.
When you said that in our group chat, where you were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna let the people who actually know what they're doing pick the team for me," like I sat back and I was like, "Have I been drafting wrong my entire life? Like, am I not doing things correctly? Because that's the most sound logic I've ever heard."
It happens. I don't know. We'll see. I'm on one, but this week we'll see. Yeah.
Absolutely, Brennan. Do you have the defensive players?
Yeah. I got it now. All good.
I feel pressuring you, but you did.
Let's see. Robert Quinn out for the Bears. Khalil Mack is questionable.
Yes.
I'm just gonna go game by game here.
Sure.
Look at some of these bigger names.
Absolutely.
Lions Packers. Kenny Clark got injured last week. He's one of the better players on the Packers defensive line. He's going to be out with a groin injury. Desmond Trufant for the Lions out as well. Nick Williams, deep tackle for the Lions, is also out. For the Titans, Vic Beasley, Derek Roberson are both out, and Malcolm Butler is questionable. Let's see, Jack Doyle out for the Colts against the Vikings. He's offensive, but a name that we know. The Bills got some linebacker issues. Matt Milano, Tremaine Edwards, and Delshon Phillips all out, so it's going to be interesting to see who actually plays at linebacker for the Bills. I'm actually boring myself.
No, that's I can step in. I just you did give injuries, and there's probably people watching with fantasy news, but that is definitely something to look at. We'll go into our NFL picks next. And I think we're going to start like we did last year, game of the week, lock, and then upset, and then we'll just do the rest of the games in order. And we'll start with the game of the week. It's Ravens-Texans, at least what I think. CBS decided to put Tony Romo and Jim Nantz on the Chiefs-Chargers game in the 4 o'clock window. I think Ravens-Texans is a better matchup, and we agreed in our pre-production meeting.
So do the odds books.
Yeah, so, so that is, again, a 4 o'clock game in Houston. Houston coming off a loss to Kansas City, and Baltimore just steamrolled the Cleveland Browns in Week 1. I have the Ravens in this one. Brendan, who do you got?
I also have the Ravens in this one. I think that at a -7, the Ravens have a very good chance of taking this game. Obviously, you love to see the quarterback matchup of Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson. Watson's got back-to-back weeks against two of the best quarterbacks in the league, or in the AFC and in the league. Texans didn't look great last week against the Chiefs. I know they've got the long break, but at the same time, I think the Ravens are just too good.
Dan?
Yeah, and that's why I ended up going with them too. I just think the Ravens are too good. I wanted to take the Texans just to be different, but now Baltimore's going to take this one.
All right, I agree, with the Ravens. I think that Lamar Jackson's just going to be too much for this Texans defense. And, I mean, after this week, it's just only up for the Texans, Ravens-Chiefs is probably the hardest first 2 games you have to play. I still think Houston's a playoff team. I know a lot of people are picking Indianapolis in the AFC South. But I do think Houston is better than what they will look like, which will be 0-2 after Week 2. Now we'll give you our locks, and it'll just be one lock because, guys, we agree across the board with who we're going with. And the one YouTube comment that we had relates to this, Ben Bacharach commenting that Adam Gase is the worst coach of all time. And our lock that we have is the San Francisco 49ers beating the Jets, San Fran -7. And lock that in, guys. Everyone, lock that in. I don't see any reason that the Jets at home at MetLife can pull off an upset against the San Francisco 49ers.
Just to
Completely agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, I'll go. Thanks, Zoom. Last year, the last time I got a lock wrong was when I locked the Cowboys over the Jets in the Nick Friend show, and I was so angry. But now this has to be revenge because there's no way that they can beat this team.
I love the fact that Ben is commenting on our YouTube saying that Adam Gase is the worst coach of all time, and that's his head coach. Like, he's a Jets fan. The fact that he is so distraught after Week 1, we mentioned it earlier. Overreaction Week 1 is just how the league works and how covering football works after the first week. The Jets are done. They're never going to win another game. Sam Darnold is the worst quarterback in the league. I think all those things can be said.
Jeez. My goodness. If you people who are on the show right now and haven't caught the beginning, Brendan has been on fire with his
overreaction Week 1. Okay,
he's giving.
This is what we saw.
He's putting it out there, but we all have 49ers as our lock. There's dysfunction in Jetstown once again, and then we'll start the season 0-2. Now our upsets, this is where it gets a little interesting. Brendan, you noted in our pre-production meeting that there's a lot of games where there's heavy favorites and, that it might just be chalk today, where there might not be a couple surprise upsets. We have, found a couple. I'll start. I went with the Rams. They're in Philadelphia. The Eagles are only 1.5-point favorites, so you could, call it an underdog if you want. But the Rams beat the Dallas Cowboys, who were slated to be better than the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 1. And I understand that was, the opening of SoFi Stadium. But the Rams defense is good enough. They're good against the run with the Eagles, who had run issues against the Washington football team. And their offense was good enough. Do I think Jared Goff is, a quarterback that's going to outduel Carson Wentz? No, but I think as a collective unit, the Rams are just better than the Eagles. And if this was a conventional 2020, the Los Angeles Rams coming into Philly and during a home opener, no. But there's no fans in Philadelphia. They're not going to be making a lot of noise. They won't be wearing the black jerseys. This isn't on national TV. I think the Rams, and with the points as well, I think they just win right out. I think they get the W against the Philadelphia Eagles. Brennan, who's your upset of the week?
I actually Yeah, you mentioned the Rams taking down the Eagles. I'm not to do a spoiler, but it's my game, so I'm going to spoil it right now. All three of us have the Rams in that game, even though they're the underdog.
Yeah.
But for my upset of the week, I am the only one picking the Patriots over the Seahawks. And that's just because I wanted to kind of get frisky a little bit. You know, Seahawks are the favorite, but I think the Patriots are unpredictable. And when you have a team that's unpredictable, sometimes you just got to roll with it. So that's who I'm going with for my upset. Patriots, Cam Newton. Get it done.
And I thought about going to the Patriots. I'm actually in New England this weekend, social distancing, visiting my aunt and uncle. All this workout equipment is not mine. I wish I could say that was. But it is Patriot land here, so I thought about it. But instead, I just decided to go with the Broncos over the Steelers. Just not convinced the Steelers are a great team yet. And I need Cortland Sutton to have a big week if I'm going to win. So I'm also picking Broncos for that reason.
So those are our locks, upsets, and our game of the week picks. Just a review of the points. Brennan had 13 points in our system, which I'll explain right now. But 13 points, and me and Dan tied with 12. In the 15 games that we picked, we did not pick the opening Thursday night football game because we were on Sunday. We all went 10-5. But Brennan hit his upset of the week, his lock of the week, and his game of the week. I didn't hit my lock. That was unfortunately the Eagles over the Washington football team for me, but I did hit the upset and game of the week. And Dan hit his lock and his upset, but the game of the week pick, he had the Bucks over the Saints, and it was the other way around. But, I mean, you can't, pretty even. 10-5, I think that's a pretty good job, especially in week one where there's going to be upsets and teams that are overvalued. But those were our picks for week one and where we stand. And now our picks for week two. The reason everyone's here. The week two picks 10 minutes before kickoff. We'll start with the Falcons versus the Cowboys. Dallas -3, and they are in Jerry's world. We all have picked the Cowboys. Look, the Atlanta Falcons had a good week one and what was a loss to the Seattle Seahawks. And I understand Julio Jones had 130-plus yards. Calvin Ridley had 2 touchdowns. Matt Ryan was throwing it all over the place. And the Cowboys secondary maybe isn't tops, but I think their offense and their run game is going to be too much for Atlanta. The Cowboys are at home as well. They're going to rebound after a week one opening loss, and the Dallas Cowboys will defeat the Atlanta Falcons. Brennan?
Yeah, next game, Lions versus Packers. Packers favored by 6 points. All three of us have the Packers in this one. And really not a surprise, the Lions secondary is not great. We saw Aaron Rodgers go out, and I mentioned it earlier in the show with the revenge tour. Packers went out, drafted Jordan Love in the first round. Aaron Rodgers said, you know what, I'm not done. Excuse me, don't draft a quarterback, please. And he just went out and threw for one of his best games of his career. I don't see that changing in week two, and I don't think anyone else does either because all three of us go with the Packers.
Next game on the slate, Giants versus Bears. The New York Giants on the road. It's going to be nice, 58 degrees and sunny in Chicago. A game that maybe at the beginning of the season, you're a Giants fan, one you could take. The Giants last year played the Chicago Bears, lost 19-14. That game was at MetLife, and the reason the Giants lost, Aldrich Rosas, who's no longer the kicker, missed 2 40-yarders, and the Giants went 1 for 12 on third down conversions. That was against a Mitchell Trubisky who was Now I think he's a little more than he's average. He played well last week. I think him getting Allen Robinson and the Chicago Bears, dealing with Allen Robinson's contract and making sure he was happy this week, I think that plays a factor. I think Allen Robinson exploits this Giants secondary that is too young and too inexperienced, and he has a big day. The Giants' offensive line is not enough for the Bears' defensive line. The Giants keep it close, just like last week, but they lose. I have them as a win because I'm going to pick my Giants, but the prediction of how I think it'll actually happen is what Dan and Brennan have, and that's a Bears win. But I, of course, always slate the Giants in, and that is my pick.
Yeah, John, I was going to ask you. You were saying a lot of good things about the Bears, so I wanted to know what your pick was there. So the Giants in that one. Next game we've got is Rams versus Eagles. Already talked about it. Philadelphia's 1.5-point favorite. All three of us got the Rams. And the upset pick of the week for John. Move on, John.
Thanks, man. Panthers versus Buccaneers. Buccaneers are 8.5-point favorites, and I understand this Carolina defense. The secondary is young. The defensive line is not what it was last year. There's no Luke Kuechly. But 8.5 is a strong number. We do have the Bucks. I think that's something you have to watch out for because I think McCaffrey and this offense maybe could cover, but we do have the Bucks winning across the board.
Our next game is the 49ers and the Jets.
Yeah.
It'll be on Disney Channel today. It'll be on at 1, so you can find it there. We all have the 49ers. In the next game, there's the there's no analysis.
I was going to say that's all that needs to be said is just the 49ers, yeah.
It's the Disney Channel game of the day. And then you can go, if you want to watch some other football, there's Jaguars and Titans. Titans are favored by 7.5. Last week I had the Jags. Wasn't going to pick them again. I think that's tempting fate. So we all have Tennessee in that one over Jacksonville.
Next game of the slate, Vikings versus Colts. Indy is 3.5-point favorites, but they didn't look good last week. They lost to the team who was slated to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. So with that, all three of us have the Vikings, who Vikings didn't look that good last week either, but, compete in the NFC North and didn't have too bad of a game versus Aaron Rodgers. So all three of us have the Vikings pulling the upset, but none of us picked it as our upset of the week.
Yeah, I was going to say the Vikings last week ran into an angry Aaron Rodgers. That's unfortunate. It really is. Our next game is the Bills and the Dolphins. You've come to the right place, people. The Bills are going to squish the fish today. You should take Buffalo. 5.5 favorites in Miami. Doesn't matter. There's no fans. They're going to win that one. And then we have the Broncos and the Steelers. I have the Broncos this week as my upset. I've already mentioned that. Not convinced Pittsburgh is a great team yet. Just picking the upset to try and get some points. I'm down 1.
Yeah, Washington versus Arizona is next. Arizona -7 versus the Washington football team, which might surprise people because Washington is 1-0. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles, ruined my lock of the week with Philly, but I think that was a fluke. That Washington game, I think Arizona's a better team. That was my upset, the Cardinals last week, picking the Cardinals beating the 49ers. That came to fruition. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a huge day against the Washington football team, and we have the Cardinals across the board as well.
Dan, I really like your squish the fish metaphor there, but I think it's a little inaccurate. I think it should be hammer the mammal because, dolphins do breathe air. They are mammals. You gotta be scientific with it, okay? Next game we got in the slate, Chiefs versus Chargers. KC is 9-point favorites, so none of us can make it our lock, but all three of us do have the Chiefs. Patty Mahomes, really good. Tyrod Taylor, not that good. I think it comes down to as simple as that. Comes down to the quarterback play. Chiefs win. Oh, I'm next, too, because we're skipping the game of the week where we all have the Ravens beating the Texans. Patriots versus Seahawks. Seahawks are -3.5. 2 out of 3 of us have the Seahawks, but the other one is me. I'm taking the Patriots. Mentioned it in my upset of the week. I think Cam Newton comes out and has a great game.
That's a fair analysis.
Simple as that.
The final game that we have here is Saints Raiders. We all have the New Orleans Saints beating John Gruden and the Raiders, man. You know how much I love taking John Gruden, just so I can tell you what, man, I like that guy as a football coach, man, but I really think that New Orleans is going to win this game today.
Yep, we all have the Saints across the board, too, and that will be actually on Monday Night Football, that final game, and the debut of Vegas's new stadium where no one will be in attendance. But yes, that is the September 20th edition of the MVP Radio Show. If you found this link and you're watching, good job on YouTube. Each week it will be tweeted out as well at the MVP Show on Twitter. You can give us a follow there.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to design a profile picture.
Yes. I mean, we currently do not have a logo. Probably, could go to a logo auto generator and find something that fits. But if anyone out there wants to design it to us, we'll pay you with no money, and you could do that for us. But yes, that is also true. And yeah, this is the MVP Show YouTube page. Again, if you're here, this is where we will be each and every Sunday of the NFL football season, breaking it down from noon to 1. The only pregame show you have to watch right here at the MVP Show. Brennan, Dan, any last words and last things to add before we go off?
Go Celtics.
That's a good one. Nah. I'm good.
All right, this was the MVP Show for September 20th. Enjoy NFL Week 2.